Before you prepare to cover the bunker, a little pre-planning is important. Make sure to have sufficient labor, plastic, and weighting material all available before packing is complete. It's recommended that you use tire sidewalls rather than full tires. Full tires can accumulate water, which makes them heavy, and also become a habitat for mosquitoes. You should strive to cover the forage with a plastic film as soon as possible after filling. When covering is delayed, increased exposure to oxygen leads to spoilage and increases the risk of rain exposure.
We want to cover with plastic soon after the storage is full to minimize the exposure to oxygen. The first step, if you have plastic on the walls, is to remove the weighting material and place the wall plastic over the top of the forage, and then with temporary weighting hold it in place. Apply the cover plastic over the top, overlapping 4 feet onto the wall plastic. If a second layer of plastic or a tarp is used, you would apply that in the same procedure. Then you would weight the plastic to hold it tightly against the forage. If using tire sidewalls, we want these tire sidewalls to touch each other so as to provide a uniform weighting of the plastic on the silage. This helps to limit how much oxygen can get to the silage. If we're using a tarp and gravel-filled bags, we want these bags placed in rows at about 10-foot intervals along the length of the bunker, going from side to side. This helps to hold the plastic down against the forage. If you have a piece of plastic that's not long enough to cover your storage, or if you need to have joints, you want to overlap those joints about 4 to 6 feet so as to limit how much oxygen can get through those joints into the forage. And you want to provide extra weighting at those joints to help seal that area. When the plastic is in place, you want to make sure that the edges are properly sealed, so using the gravel-filled bags around the perimeter walls of the bunker helps to seal that joint. And also at the front of the bunker or the edges of piles, you can dump some sand or gravel on those edges or use multiple gravel-filled bags to help seal that intersection between the plastic and the ground. Once the storage is covered and the weighting is in place, you should go and make one last pass over the silage or over the top of the storage to make sure that there have been no holes made in the plastic. When building a silage pile, some people use a slope that is too steep, more than the recommended 3-to-1, 3 horizontal to 1 vertical slope. When you do that, it's difficult to pack that surface, so it's not going to be tightly packed. Also, it's difficult to cover because it's very steep to try to walk on, and people will have to walk up and down that slope carrying their tires or their gravel-filled bags to do this. Some people get the slope so steep that they actually have to tie the tires in place because otherwise gravity would cause them to slide down the pile and they wouldn't have the tires holding the plastic in place. Adding strings to tie the tires together adds more labor, costs more. You don't end up with as good a silage at the surface, as good a seal on that silage as you would if it was a more gradual slope that was properly packed and weighted. During the storage period, holes can occur in your plastic. This can be caused by animals trying to access the feed. When you have a hole in your plastic, this exposes the silage to oxygen through that hole. You want to seal that hole as quickly as possible. So you should be walking your plastic about once a week to make sure that you don't have any holes, looking for holes, carrying the tape that is used to seal those holes, designed by companies to help seal the holes. Make sure you cover that hole 4 to 6 inches on either side of the hole to make sure you have a good seal on that hole.
When you come to covering the bunker silo or silage pile, it's important that all your workers are working together as a team and that you've communicated your plan of action at the start. All of the individuals who start covering the pile you want them to finish covering the pile safely. One of the big risks in covering these piles is the height that individuals are working at and the unstable surface that they will be walking on, plus the weight of the tires or the gravel bags that they may be carrying. Be sure that you consider how to address each of these issues as you work through covering your bunker silo. The covering process is complete and the fermentation process begins. Fermentation will last for 2 to 3 weeks. During this time, the forage will vary in quality from day to day. Similar to what we see with traditional silos, when the forage is undergoing the fermentation process, silo gas will be produced. Silo gas is primarily a nitrogen dioxide, and the concern to the human worker is that it affects the respiratory system. During this 2 to 3 week time period, watch for the signs of silo gas around your bunker silo or pile. Signs to observe may be an orange to yellowish colored gas with a smell of bleach, but sometimes these gases have no color, and with the winds around in the outside areas, you may not smell them. Just remember, in this time period, silo gas is being produced, and if you feel like you had an exposure to silo gas, seek medical care to be checked out. Silo gas can damage your lungs or even cause death. Taking time and watching for signs and symptoms of silo gas will be important for those first 2 to 3 weeks around the silo.